Welcome everybody to this short webinar session in which we will be taking a look at the approach of verification and validation on both sides of the model within our environment, the TRC environment, which will be in this case the Test Engineering Studio. So for the presentation, the first thing that we are going to take a look at is basically the introduction to the presentation. Okay. First of all, the introduction about who am I actually, who's your presenter today. Then we will move on to a couple of theoretical concepts, which are basically understanding the process of verifying and validating. And finally, we will take a look at a use case, a practical use case, applying these concepts into practice. Very good. So for the introduction, as I mentioned, this is Meeting Your Guide, which today is going to be myself, Jose Pereira. I am part of the sales and consulting team within the Reuse company. Okay, so we've been dedicated to providing and to developing this kind of tools to digitalize the process of applying systems engineering. Very good. So for the theoretical content, we will be understanding or trying to understand what is actually verification and validation, but not only which is the concept behind that, but also when and what to apply to this process. So what is, first of all, validating? So validating is basically providing objective evidence that we are doing, as it is said, the right thing. This basically means that we are meeting the needs that our stakeholders are providing us, right? This is basically the concept behind this idea. While on the other hand, verification is providing objective evidence about doing the thing right. Whatever we're doing, it does not matter right now, the need that we were talking about before, but the process that we are applying, it needs to be done right, okay? So when is the next question? When do we apply verification and validation? In every single project phase, right? This, of course, includes from the very beginning, the left-hand side, all those blueprints, all those models, all those requirements need to be verified against the consequent quality standards, right? And as we move on to the subsequent stages in this process, we also require to apply verification and validation. Then it comes the most commonly known process of verifying and validating, which is going to be from the right-hand side against the left-hand side, right? So we are verifying now the system against those requirements and models that we have already verified and validated against the quality standard. So for the what question, it is basically any engineering item involved in the process, right? Requirements, models, components, subsystems, so on and so forth, okay? And this, of course, here is a brief overview about the ideas that I just mentioned, okay? So this is very important to be applied to any engineering item and in any project phase. Excellent. So with this, we've finished the theoretical content. And now we move on to the practical part. So we are going to apply the V&V process in a use case between the right and the left-hand side. So we are doing exactly what I mentioned in the last part. We're verifying the system or the subsystem in this case against the requirements and the models on the left-hand side. Okay. So this is our environment. What we will basically be doing here is trying to create a new connection. In this case, we will create a connection to a requirement specification. In this case, it's going to be the stakeholder requirement specification. And what we will do is basically verify, in this example, the budget that we have for the project. So we have initially defined the budget. We are at the end of the project, and we want to verify that the total amount of costs implied in the project is under the budget or under the threshold defined on the left-hand side, okay? So the first thing that we will require is to create a verification action template. This verification action template is basically a digital template in which we can allocate all the information regarding the verification or validation process. In this case, we can define the technique, right? an inspection, an analysis, so on and so forth, and also the method, which is something that we have defined internally. And basically, we have three of those: a comparison rule to evaluate between two numeric values, a custom rule, which basically allows us to include a custom code to tailor our process as much as possible, and then a checklist, right, which includes a set of questions to be answered accordingly. In this case, we are providing additional information such as the objectives, the activities to perform, and the expected evidences. For the threshold, in this case, we are comparing two numeric values. So we have defined the upper limit, which is going to be 100 euros. What we are doing right now is, once we have defined that verification action template, we can assign it to our project, right? So to our set of requirements. This can also be done individually or to a specific set within the project itself, okay? So what we'll do now, we have finished the work of the administrator. Now we're moving on to the V&V engineer. So what we want to do is fill the verification action, right? So we check which are the conditions, which is the requirement that we have to verify, the technique to be applied, and the method, which in this case is going to be a custom rule. So we compare the numeric values, and in this case, we simply have to check and to revise the document, the cost breakdown document. Okay, so we search for the value that we're interested in, which is going to be the total value, which is 148.60 euros, which is over the limit that we have defined. Another thing that we can do is, in the obtained evidence, include the document itself and access it directly within the tool. Okay, so as you can see, we can open it and we can skim through it as we did before, right? But in this case, we are within the tool itself. Very good. So we complete the process, and now we have filled in information as the verification and validation engineer. We execute the assessment, and the tool is going to detect that the limit is below what we have expected. Sorry, the value that we have included is above the limit that we have expected. Okay, so we have a couple of options. We can simply, let's imagine that we modify and we take out, we return some of the components, and we reach this threshold perfectly. Okay, so we reevaluate, and now we are suggested yes. Another option would be to, let's say, imagine that we have an increase in the investment into the project. So now the threshold is not 100, but it is, let's say, 200, for example. So we are once again below, let's say, the threshold that we have expected. Here we are warned that the verification has been modified, the information has been modified, so we have to reevaluate. Okay. Now the tool provides us with a suggestion, a suggested result, but the verification and validation engineer and the person reviewing this process needs to confirm or deny definitely the process itself. So once a person has manually changed the status of the requirement, it cannot be modified, right? The tool cannot overwrite the information that the person has defined, okay? And once anyone has made these changes, now the tool is going to store not only the date at which these changes have been performed, but also the agent, the person responsible for those. Okay. We also have a history part in which we register each and every one of the state changes that have occurred to this element. Okay. So once we finish our specification, we have different tools at our disposal to show and to communicate this information to the other teams, right? So this is basically our current state diagram in which we can see the actual state of the project. In this case, we know that we have a couple of improvements to be made, as most of the, I'd say 50% approximately of our specification is not verified. Okay. Below what we have are different graphs, which can be tailored according to your needs. But in this case, they're showing you the resources, right? In this case, for example, we are talking about days invested in the project, and we expected to finish the project in, let's say, 125 days, but we are on the 132 mark, right? So we are warned in this case, okay? So this shows the different information pieces that we have within the tool, but we also can modify them according to our needs. So with this, we've finished the presentation. So thank you very much for attending. And if you have any questions or you want to raise any kind of discussion, please feel free to do so. In the meantime, what I would like to do is to talk to you about the coming up webinar, which is going to be really interesting because we have been dedicating ourselves to quality in terms of requirements or regarding requirements a lot. But right now we're making the next step. We're making the jump into models, which we believe that it's the next step forward in this process of getting and obtaining high quality in terms of elements during the development of any project. And this presentation will be on the 19th and 21st of April. So definitely try not to miss it out because I think you will definitely regret it. Okay. So if there's no question at all, please feel free to write me any kind of question at the subsequent address. Very good. So you can write any doubts, any discussion you want to raise, or anything regarding the tool that I have showed today. And that's it. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending the session. And I hope that it was valuable for you. Okay.